remember standing outside the shop, staring at the glass door like it held answers instead of overpriced roses. It was his birthday. Of course it was. And of course I had waited until the last moment, because nothing expresses deep, meaningful love like panic buying flowers 5 minutes before closing time. The sign above read "Bloom and Bliss," glowing softly in warm yellow light, like it was personally inviting me to make a decision I wasn't emotionally prepared for. I took a breath and walked in. The scent hit me first, fresh lilies, roses, something sweet and calming. It felt peaceful. Too peaceful for someone like me, who was internally debating whether red roses were romantic or just painfully predictable. "Hi, welcome," a voice called out. I looked up, and there she was. Not in a dramatic, cinematic slow-motion way. No violins. No wind machine. Just her. Standing behind the counter, tying a ribbon around a bouquet like it actually mattered. "Looking for something special?" she asked, her voice soft but confident. Yeah," I said, already sounding like someone who had lost the plot. "It's my boyfriend's birthday." She nodded, like that was the most ordinary thing in the world. "Roses?" she suggested. "Or do you want something that actually says something?" I blinked. "Roses don't say something?" "They say," she smiled slightly, "that you didn't try very hard." "Oh." I laughed awkwardly. "Okay, that's fair." She stepped out from behind the counter, moving toward a display of mixed bouquets. "If you want something meaningful, you choose flowers based on feeling. Not habit." Feeling. That word lingered longer than it should have. Because the truth was, I didn't know what I felt anymore. Not really. Not about him. Not about us. I had just been, continuing. "You can tell me about him," she said casually, picking up a bunch of white tulips. "I'll help you choose." And for some reason, I did. "He's nice," I started. Which, looking back, is possibly the least convincing description of a boyfriend in history. She raised an eyebrow. "Nice?" "Yeah," I forced a smile. "Reliable. Sweet. Predictable. Predictable." The word sat between us like an uninvited guest. "And you?" she asked, glancing at me. "What are you like?" I hesitated. No one had asked me that in a long time. "I don't know," I admitted quietly. She studied me for a moment, not in a judgmental way, but like she was actually listening. Actually seeing me. And that's when something shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough. Enough to make me forget, for a second, why I had walked into that shop in the first place. She didn't rush me. That's what I remember most. In a world where everyone seems to be in a hurry, finishing sentences, checking phones, moving on, she just stayed. Like my half-answers weren't inconvenient. "So," she said, gently placing the tulips back, "you don't know what you're like. But you know what he's like." It wasn't a question. It was an observation. I let out a small breath. "I guess that's easier." "Is it?" She tilted her head slightly. I didn't answer. Because suddenly, it didn't feel easy at all. She moved to another section, running her fingers lightly over a bundle of lavender. "Most people come in here asking for flowers that look right. Very few ask for something that feels right." Her words wrapped around me in a way I couldn't explain. "I thought they were the same thing," I said. "They're not," she replied simply. There was a pause. Not awkward, just quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you hear your own thoughts a little louder than you'd like. What do you feel when you think about him? She asked. I laughed softly, but it came out uneven. You're really committed to this, huh? She smiled. I'm committed to helping people choose honestly. Honestly. That word again. I looked at the rows of flowers, trying to focus on colors, shapes, anything but the question. What did I feel? He's good to me, I said finally. She didn't respond right away. Just waited. And, she prompted gently. And, I hesitated. That should be enough, right? It sounded more like I was asking for permission than stating a fact. She stepped closer, not too close, just enough that I could see the tiny details I hadn't noticed before. The faint ink stain on her finger. The way her expression softened when she listened. Sometimes good is comfortable, she said. But comfortable doesn't always mean right. I swallowed. Because I knew that. I had known it for a while. I just hadn't said it out loud. Then how do you know what's right? I asked, my voice quieter now. She picked up a single sunflower, turning it slowly between her fingers. You pay attention, she said. To what makes you feel more like yourself. More like yourself. It sounded simple. Too simple. But the problem was, I didn't remember the last time I had felt that. Not in my relationship. Not in my routine. Not in the life I had carefully built to make sense on paper. Do you ever feel that? I asked before I could stop myself. She looked at me then. Really looked at me. Yes, she said softly. Sometimes it surprises you. And for a brief, confusing moment, I wondered if she meant right now. My heart did something strange. Not fast. Not loud. Just different. I looked away quickly, pretending to be interested in a bunch of daisies. This is ridiculous, I muttered under my breath. What is? She asked. Nothing, I shook my head. I'm just overthinking flowers. She smiled slightly. It's never just about the flowers. And somehow, I knew she was right. Because I hadn't thought about my boyfriend in the last 10 minutes. Not once. And that realization? It didn't feel like guilt. It felt like something else. Something I wasn't ready to name yet. I picked up a bouquet just to have something in my hands. Pink roses. Safe. Neutral. The kind of choice no one questions. This one's nice, I said, even though my voice lacked any real conviction. She glanced at it, then back at me. It's fine. Fine. Another word that suddenly felt like an insult. Why does everything have to mean something with you? I asked, half joking, half defensive. It doesn't, she replied calmly. You're the one who keeps asking questions. I opened my mouth to argue, but stopped. Because she wasn't wrong. I was the one asking. I sighed, placing the bouquet back a little too quickly. I just came in here to buy flowers. That's it. Then buy them, she said simply. Her tone wasn't dismissive. If anything, it was freeing. Like she was giving me permission to leave. And maybe that's what made me stay. I crossed my arms lightly, glancing around again. You must think I'm being dramatic. I think you're being honest, she said. That word again. It was starting to feel dangerous. Most people don't like being honest, she continued. It complicates things. I let out a quiet laugh. Yeah, well. I don't have time for complicated. She raised an eyebrow. And yet, here you are. I shook my head, smiling despite myself. You're very good at this. At selling flowers? She asked. No, I said, meeting her eyes for a second longer than I meant to. At whatever this is. Something passed between us then. Subtle, but undeniable. Not loud. Not obvious. Just there. I looked away first. So, what would you choose? I asked quickly, trying to shift the focus. If it were you? For your boyfriend, she clarified. The word felt strange now. Heavy. Yeah, I nodded. She took her time, walking over to a smaller arrangement tucked slightly to the side. It wasn't flashy. No bright reds or dramatic colors. Just soft whites and a few pale blues. This, she said, holding it out. I frowned slightly. That's not very romantic. Exactly, she replied. I blinked. What? It's calm, she explained. Respectful. Thoughtful. But not passionate. Her words landed harder than I expected. Are you saying I'm not passionate? I asked, a hint of challenge in my tone. I'm saying, she met my gaze steadily, that you didn't describe passion when you talked about him. I didn't respond. Because I couldn't. Every argument I tried to form just dissolved. Instead, I asked the question I hadn't meant to ask. And what does passion look like? The moment the words left my mouth, I felt it. That shift again. She didn't answer right away. Just stepped a little closer, placing the bouquet gently on the counter between us. Then she said, quietly. It doesn't feel like you have to convince yourself. My breath caught. Not because of what she said. But because of how it felt. Clear. Direct. Uncomfortable. True. And suddenly, the shop didn't feel as calm anymore. It felt charged. Like something invisible had changed the air between us. I swallowed, my fingers tightening slightly around the edge of the counter. I started, but the words didn't come. Confusing, she offered. I let out a soft, almost breathless laugh. Yeah. That's one word for it. She nodded, like she understood more than I was saying. And maybe she did. Because the truth was, I didn't feel confused about her. I felt confused about everything else. About why a simple conversation felt more real than months of a relationship. About why I didn't want to leave. About why, for the first time in a long time, I felt something that wasn't just fine. I should have ended it there. Picked a bouquet. Paid. Left. Gone back to the version of my life that made sense, where birthdays were predictable, relationships were stable, and feelings didn't suddenly shift in the middle of a flower shop. But I didn't move. Neither did she. So what happens now? I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. She leaned lightly against the counter, arms relaxed, like this wasn't unfamiliar territory for her. Like she had seen this moment before, but not rushed it. That depends, she said. Do you want to go back to choosing something safe? The question wasn't about flowers anymore. I don't know, I admitted. And that was the most honest thing I had said all day. She nodded slowly, as if that answer made perfect sense. Most people don't. Not right away. There was a pause. I could hear the faint ticking of a clock somewhere in the shop, the soft hum of a refrigerator behind the counter. Normal sounds. But nothing felt normal. I should go, I said suddenly. The words came out fast, like if I didn't say them quickly, I wouldn't say them at all. She didn't stop me. Okay, she replied, just as calm as before. No pressure. No persuasion. And somehow, that made it harder. I reached for my bag, fumbling slightly, suddenly aware of everything. My hands, my breathing, the way my thoughts refused to line up in any logical order. Thank you, I added, because it felt like I should say something. For the flowers, she asked, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. I shook my head. For the conversation. Her expression softened, just slightly. You're welcome. I turned toward the door. One step. Then another. My hand reached for the handle, but stopped. Because something inside me wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. I closed my eyes for a brief second, exhaling slowly. This was ridiculous. I had a boyfriend. A plan. A life that didn't include whatever this was. And yet. I turned back. I didn't even ask your name, I said. There it was. The line I wasn't supposed to cross. She looked at me, a quiet understanding in her eyes. Lena, she said. Lena. It fit her. Soft, but certain. I started, then stopped myself. She hadn't asked. I know, she said gently. I blinked. You do? She smiled faintly. You told me when you came in. You just didn't realize it. I let out a small laugh, shaking my head. That sounds like something you'd say. Maybe, she shrugged lightly. Another pause. Different this time. Heavier. Do you do this with everyone? I asked, half curious, half guarded. Do what? She tilted her head. This, I gestured vaguely between us. Make them question their entire life over flowers. She smiled, but didn't answer right away. Only when they're already questioning it, she said finally. That hit deeper than anything else. Because she was right. This didn't start here. It just surfaced here. I swallowed, glancing briefly at the bouquet she had chosen earlier, the calm one. The honest one. I still need flowers, I said, almost as an afterthought. She nodded. I know. But I don't think they're for him anymore. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. And the second they did, everything changed. The air. The silence. The way she looked at me. Not surprised. Just aware. Then who are they for? She asked softly. My heart started beating faster now, not out of panic, but something far more unfamiliar. I hesitated. Because saying it out loud would make it real. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that. But I also knew. I couldn't pretend anymore. Not after this. Not after her. I met her gaze, my voice barely above a whisper. I think. I'm still figuring that out. Lena didn't respond right away. She just looked at me, like she wasn't trying to fill the silence, just letting it exist. Letting me exist in it. And somehow, that made everything feel more real. More undeniable. I should probably be honest with you, I said, my fingers lightly tracing the edge of the counter. I didn't come in here expecting any of this. A small smile touched her lips. Most people don't. I exhaled softly. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be, she replied. Of course it wasn't. Because comfort was exactly what I had been holding on to for so long. Comfortable relationship. Comfortable routine. Comfortable version of myself. And now, nothing felt comfortable anymore. But strangely, it didn't feel wrong either. That's the problem, I admitted. This should feel wrong. Should it? She asked gently. Yes, I said quickly. I mean, I have a boyfriend. I walked in here to buy him flowers, and now I'm standing here questioning everything because of someone I just met. Her expression didn't change, but her voice softened. It's not because of me. I frowned slightly. It feels like it is. It feels like that, she said, because I asked you questions no one else did. That stopped me. Because again, she wasn't wrong. No one had asked me how I felt in a long time. They assumed I was fine. I said I was fine. And eventually, I started believing it. I didn't realize how much I was settling, I said quietly. The word hung in the air, heavier than I expected. Lena glanced down at the flowers, then back at me. Settling doesn't always look like giving up, she said. Sometimes it looks like staying somewhere that no longer feels like you. I swallowed. Because that was exactly it. That quiet, creeping feeling I had been ignoring for months. Maybe longer. I didn't mean for this to happen, I added, almost like I needed to justify it, to her, to myself. She shook her head slightly. You don't have to explain it to me. Then who do I explain it to? I asked, my voice barely steady now. She held my gaze, her expression calm but sincere. Start with yourself. That hit harder than anything else she had said. Because I didn't have an answer. Not a clear one. Not one that didn't scare me. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding, running a hand through my hair. This is a lot. It is, she agreed. Another pause. But this time it didn't feel overwhelming. It felt grounding. Like I was finally standing in something real, even if it was uncertain. Can I ask you something? I said. She nodded. Why do you care? I asked. I mean, you don't even know me. A faint, almost thoughtful smile appeared on her face. Sometimes, she said, you don't need to know someone for a long time to recognize something real. My heart skipped. Not dramatically. Just enough to make me notice. And what do you think you're recognizing? I asked, my voice softer now. She hesitated for the first time. Just a second. But it was enough. I think, she started, then stopped, choosing her words carefully. I think you're at a point where you can either ignore what you feel, or finally listen to it. The simplicity of it was almost overwhelming. Two choices. Ignore it. Or listen. I looked down at my hands, then back at her. And if I listen? I asked. Her eyes met mine, steady and certain. Then things change. My breath caught. Because deep down, I knew they already had. Things change. Her words echoed in my mind long after she said them. And standing there, in the middle of a quiet flower shop that somehow felt like the center of my entire world, I realized something I had been avoiding for far too long. Things had already changed. I wasn't the same person who walked in. And maybe I hadn't been for a while. I can't go back and pretend this didn't happen, I said finally. My voice was steady, but my heart wasn't. Lena didn't look surprised. She just nodded, like she had been waiting for me to reach that point on my own. You don't have to decide everything right now, she said gently. You just have to be honest about where you are. Where I was. Not where I was supposed to be. Not where I had planned to be. But here. In this moment. I think I've been trying to force something to work, I admitted. Because it was easy. Because it made sense. And now, she asked. I glanced at the bouquet she had chosen earlier, the one that didn't pretend to be more than it was. Now it doesn't feel like enough, I said. The truth settled between us, quiet but undeniable. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty saying it. Just, clear. I care about him, I added quickly. I don't want to hurt him. Lena's expression softened. Caring about someone doesn't mean you have to stay if it's not right. I nodded slowly. I knew that. I just hadn't wanted to face it. But I also can't stay just because it's comfortable, I said, more to myself than to her. That wouldn't be fair to either of you, she replied. Another quiet moment passed. But this time it felt like closure to something, and the beginning of something else. I reached for the bouquet, the calm one. I'll take these, I said. She smiled faintly, wrapping them carefully, like they mattered. Are they still for him? She asked softly. I shook my head. No, I said. They're for me. The words felt unfamiliar, but right. Like I was finally choosing something for myself, instead of following a script I didn't even remember agreeing to. She handed me the flowers, our fingers brushing for just a second. It was a small moment. But it stayed. Thank you, I said again. This time, I meant more than just the conversation. She nodded, her gaze steady but warm. You're welcome. I turned toward the door again. But this time, I didn't hesitate. Because I knew I wasn't walking away from something. I was walking toward something. Something uncertain. Something complicated. But something real. As I reached the door, I paused just briefly, glancing back at her. Maybe I'll come back, I said. It wasn't a promise. Not yet. But it wasn't just a thought either. Lena smiled, soft, knowing. I'll be here. And for the first time in a long time, I believed in the possibility of something more. Not perfect. Not planned. But honest. I stepped outside, the cool air brushing against my face, the bouquet held gently in my hands. And as I walked away, I realized I wasn't carrying flowers for someone else anymore. I was carrying the beginning of a life I hadn't allowed myself to imagine before. And maybe, just maybe, this time I was finally choosing it.